Hey everybody, I am David, and today I want to talk about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This is a movie that is a classic to my heart, maybe to a lot of people that are out there. I put it right up there with movies like Ghostbusters and the original Back to the Future film. I put it right up there with those films, and funny enough, it's directed by the director of Back to the Future, the trilogy, Robert Zemeckis, who also went on to direct Castaway as well as The Walk with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's directed a lot of brilliant films. He's a great filmmaker, as far as I'm concerned. And Forrest Gump is another one, Academy Award-winning film, although some people feel Shawshank Redemption should have won that one. Nevertheless, he is a great filmmaker, and this is definitely one of his greats, and one that I feel gets overlooked nowadays when people talk about Robert Zemeckis and the work that he's done. This movie came literally right after he did Back to the Future. It came out like 2 years later, 1988. Funny enough, he brought back Christopher Lloyd for this one, which I'll get into a little bit. But let's start off with the story itself. Basically, the story takes place in 1947, and it involves a detective named Eddie Valiant who is assigned on this case to find out what Roger Rabbit's wife has been doing while she's been out, because she's been missing. Roger hasn't been seeing his wife that much lately, and he finds out that his wife has been cheating on him in cartoon fashion by playing patty cake. And patty cake isn't, for a cartoon, it's having an affair. It's like almost having sex with another person, but instead of sex, it's actually patty cake, which is some of the undertones that go with this movie. When you watch it as a kid, it goes over your head, but when you watch it as an adult, you see something completely different. Eventually, Roger Rabbit gets framed for murder. People believe that he killed the guy who has been seeing his wife, and it really kicks off from there. So I am going to say, if you haven't seen this movie, please go check it out. It's a really great film. Eddie Valiant, played by Bob Hoskins, is great. You really love his character and the journey that he goes through into this film, as well as his interaction with Roger Rabbit himself. Eddie is going through some emotional turmoil. He basically lost his brother, which I won't reveal how, but they reveal it in the movie how he lost his brother. And his journey from beginning to end is a really nice character development, I think, on an emotional level. We even get Roger Rabbit, the title character himself, who's as enjoyable as you might think a cartoon rabbit would be. If you like the Looney Tunes, I think Roger Rabbit is in that wheelhouse. Even though this movie was produced by Disney, it is a Disney film. It was produced by Touchstone Pictures, which was a branch of Disney. Disney made Touchstone Pictures, from my understanding, because they wanted to do more adult films at the time. And this was a PG-13 film, a little bit more, not a hard PG-13, but they did more than what Disney would be allowed to do on their regular company, on the Walt Disney Company. Nowadays, they've been doing a little bit more PG-13 with movies like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Star Wars films and the Marvel films. But back in the 80s and 90s, they were only doing live-action PG films. So Touchstone was their way of branching out to an older audience. And this was what this movie was geared towards, an older audience. And so it does make you wonder if, the Spielberg, who produced the film, and Zemeckis, who directed it, went to Warner Brothers and said, hey, we want to do a Looney Tunes movie. And then they were like, no. We don't want to. We have no interest in that right now, which, funny enough, they did Space Jam in this sort of fashion. But then they went to Disney and said, hey, can we do this? And they did. And that's what it kind of feels like a little bit. It uses a lot of Looney Tunes style humor in this more adult setting. And the Looney Tunes were always kind of like that. They weren't like for adults, but they were in a way where anybody from any age can enjoy them. And that's what this movie does correctly. We even got Baby Herman, who is a baby that smokes a cigar, something you'll probably never see in a PG-13 movie of this caliber. A lot of great supporting characters. What I really do like is how the setting and the tone of the film takes place in the 1940s. It feels... it helps the film, I think, feel a little bit more timeless in a lot of ways. We even got Christopher Lloyd, who plays Judge Doom in the film. The film's a villain. I think Christopher Lloyd does an outstanding job. People might remember him from. People will remember him from Back to the Future as Doc Brown. He played a villain in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. But this villain, he plays it much more colder and a little bit more creepier and sinister, which I really love seeing him play. Like, he does creepy really well, and when you see him at the end, there's a twist with him at the end that will, like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, and you see that he just turns insane at the end, which is a lot of fun to watch. There's a lot of great cameos throughout this film, which is why it's interesting, because I did hear that they did try shopping this film to other studios, like I said earlier. But because Spielberg had a huge hand in this film, and he was already an established big name at that time, he was able to get the studios to agree on a way at getting all these different cartoon characters from different studios in this film. And it allowed you to see for the first time characters like Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny sharing the same screen. And it's the only movie where you can see stuff like that, where Daffy Duck and Donald Duck are like dueling on a piano together on stage, which is some of my favorite cameos in the film. You get a little nice cameo from Tweety Bird as well. I love seeing the Looney Tunes in this movie interacting with the Disney characters, because you never get to see that in any television show or any other movie. So this is like the only place where you can see those kind of characters happening, which is why Ready Player One is actually a really intriguing film, because Spielberg got his magic again and is like, okay, let's bring together some of these things from these different films and put them together in this film. Only Spielberg can do it. So you know what, Spielberg? Get on Marvel's camp and get the X-Men and Fantastic Four over to the Avengers. And there, only you can do it. With that being said, guys, this movie is a great joy to watch. You know, I love it every time I watch it. I just watched it again last night because I knew I was going to be doing this review, and I wanted to make sure my mind was fresh on it, what I knew I wanted to say. And it definitely is a movie that, you know, like I said earlier, not a lot of people really mention this one as an all-time classic, but I do consider it as one of the greats, as some of the movies I pointed out earlier. I do think it's up there with a lot of those ones, and I'm hoping that this video will kind of get people talking about it a little bit more. I was watching this video on YouTube of like they were talking about facts about the movie, like I don't know if it was like 101 facts or something about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and there was a lot of really cool trivia, some that I already knew and some that I didn't know. And obviously this movie, well, not obviously, one of the things that I didn't know was Who Framed Roger Rabbit was actually based off a novel, and hearing the differences about the novel and hearing the differences of the movie, it shows that the movie took the right approach in taking it, because I think well, you got a great movie here now. And the animation, you know, a lot of people don't forget that this came out right before The Little Mermaid, when Disney had their renaissance. So this was kind of the movie to launch Disney into that area of the kind of movies, the tone, the audience that they needed to reach to in order to get bank from animation, because animation was almost dead by the 80s. And this also started the whole live action with animation hybrids, where you would get movies like Space Jam. I think after this movie in 1990, there was a movie called Cool World with Brad Pitt, which was really bad. And Space Jam was all right, but a lot of them were really disappointing type of films. You only got a few okay ones here and there, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in my opinion, is the best of those type of films that try to utilize the two mediums together. So with that being said, guys, I hope you comment below and tell me your thoughts. And if I would to rate this movie, I would always give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's really that good. And I'm hoping that younger audiences today who probably never seen this movie will go out and give it a chance. Rent it on iTunes. Believe me, it might be $5.99 on iTunes, but it's worth it. It's a great film. I would even say buy the film on Blu-ray or DVD if you can. I own it on DVD. I used to own it on VHS. Obviously, I upgraded. And it's a great film. I remember borrowing it from my cousin all the time and eventually had to buy my own VHS copy. Definitely a movie I hope gets talked a lot more. So until next time, guys, I'm ending this here. And girls, take care.